All right, so we got to move on. We are going to finish talking about the final 6 episodes of Fallout, the TV series. So this will be like our series review episode, let's call it.
We're going to hit each episode a little bit, but just give our overall thoughts.
Yes,
We're not necessarily going to walk the plot.
So to me, as a whole, as far as the series... Oh yeah, no, this is definitely going to be spoilers. I think this was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It started strong. It plateaued, I think, in the middle. Like, the middle, like, 3, 4, 5 episode were good, but they were a little on the boring side. But then as soon as they got to those final few episodes, they stuck the fucking landing, in my opinion.
I think that I agree with you, except that I would say we can pinpoint the... it's rare that there's a shape to the problems of a show, but I'm fairly certain that the problems of the show are Maximus shaped and I guess by a larger degree, Brotherhood of Steel shaped.
And that I agree with. And that's when the show to me got back online, is when they put Maximus with Lucy in a shelter. And then his character story was part of hers, which was still the best.
But even by the end, there was an element of the last episode where I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
This is how we got here? These are the circumstances that brought us to this moment? This fucking idiot? Yeah. Again with him? How is it still him? How, after all of this, with all of this journey and everything he's learned, how is it still him?
I am curious to see where they go with that in the second season, now that he's...
I guess gonna get a promotion.
He's an official knight now. He's not just faking it to make it. All right, so we got to go back. So the head is episode 3. This is where Maximus takes over Titus's armor, becomes Titus. He even starts calling himself Titus.
He has some issues with his mechanics. He has to go back to Philly after fighting the ghoul and everything that happened there. Meanwhile, Lucy and the ghoul are inspecting the waters.
Yeah.
And maybe doing a little light fishing. Or is it torture? It's hard to say, really, at times. All I could think every time...
the term gulper.
Yeah. I just love that every time they looked at the water, my Fallout insight kicked in. I was like, don't go in the water. Do not go in the water. Not because there's monsters, because it's so highly irradiated that you will die before you cross the fucking river. But I did... like this episode by and large. I like that Fallout, the way that they base the plot is always breadcrumb based.
Yes.
Where they give you a little bit more. And it's not like Walking Dead where they give you a little bit more raid in the last sequence and you're like, oh, now I gotta come back and find out what happens. It's like you get a little bit more every single time. And you're like, oh, okay, and I'm gonna pull this string a little bit. Oh, okay, and then that's gonna go there. Ooh, I didn't know this.
And the breadcrumbs are the different games.
Yeah.
That they're... because we're starting to get more storyline from 4.
Yeah.
Where we see a little bit more of the cryo-freezing people and that's Fallout 4. And I was like, oh, okay.
And you have the ghoul storyline kind of takes on.
So good. Oh my God, he's so good.
Yeah. But I do like episode 3. My issue with episode 3 is the reintroduction of Dingus number 2, and the reason why I can't say that Maximus is the entire problem is because you have Thaddeus, Johnny Pemberton, who I just hate. And like, first off, he has an extremely punchable face.
Yes.
Like just the most punchable face you've seen in a long time. But on top of that, he's equally as obnoxious as fucking Maximus. And you're just like, God damn it, man.
What do they call it? Not his scribe, his
squire.
Squire, yes.
But he doesn't know that Maximus is Maximus. He still thinks that it's Titus and that Maximus is dead. And it's just these two idiots being idiots together. And usually 2 idiots in agreement is funny. But this is just like, there's so many more interesting things that every time we come back to them, I'm just like, fucking with these idiots. I can't with them. I fucking can't. I want so many more things. I want to know more about this backstory. I want to know more. I don't like Norm or Chet. I don't like either of them. Their storyline is one of the most fascinating things of the entire series.
Yeah.
It's very rare to me where you have an entire storyline where the 2 characters leading it, the Scooby gang behind it, I'm like, oh, fuck these guys. And so the storyline, I'm just like, fuck this storyline. Here, I'm like, okay, the 2 guys, it's super irritating.
Yeah.
Don't like either of them. But the storyline is so fascinating. I need to know what's going on.
And we can roll this into 4 because this is kind of like the Norm and Chet story.
Yeah.
Where they are starting to explore, was it vaults? They're in 33. They go to 32 and 30. They don't go to 31 yet. They just go to 32.
They go to 32 because 32 was the one where the Ravagers came through. And they're like, what's going on? And they go through, and it's bad.
It's fucked up.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
And just like all those shots where they're going through and you can kind of gauge without them telling you how all these people killed themselves and each other, and you're just like, fuck.
Yeah.
And like from there on, that's all the incentive you need to be like, but what is going on with Vault 31?
Yeah.
But like, what the fuck is going on with Vault 31?
And you get to see the interesting differences that Norm and Chet are both cowards.
Yeah.
But Chet is willing to be resigned
to his cowardice.
To his cowardice, where Norm is getting a little bit of a...
Norm can't sit still in it.
No, as much as he wants to.
He doesn't want to look, but he has to keep looking.
Yes.
And he just is inextricably drawn towards this mystery, and he just needs to know more. And he needs to know why no one else cares. And I that whole thing is just so fascinating to me, because the more you take it apart, the more you're like, wait a minute. And then by the end of the series, you're like, wait a minute. Hang on a second. Wait. Whoa. Hang on 1 second.
Well, and that's where the interesting thing is, because they find out that his mom's Pit Boy was what let the Raiders in.
Yeah.
That killed everybody. And you're like, how is that going to play a part?
How did that happen?
Well, we find out how
that
in a fucked up way how that happened.
It takes a while, but we get there.
Dude, it's fucked up.
And then we do hit kind of, I don't want to call it the doldrums. This is more the extended backstory. Which can be a little slow. I found it so engaging that I didn't necessarily find it slow, but I could definitely see someone being like, oh, I don't care about what's his nuts, Cooper
Howard.
Cooper Howard. You know, I can see a lot of people being like, I don't fucking care about Cooper Howard. What the fuck is going on with this? But I every time they flash back to the past, I was just like, I have to take every little breadcrumb that's here.
Yeah.
Because I need to know what the fuck is going on, and this is going to be where I get all that information.
And what I love is this is where we see the robot with Matt Berry's voice.
Yeah.
But then 5 is where we understand where that voice came from, and you're like, oh, it's fucking awesome.
And he's talking about how he sold the rights to his voice.
Yeah.
They threw in a robot for free, and he's like, this is the worst thing
I've
ever done.
And what I love is that this show is an R-rated show, because I don't know if I can listen to Matt Berry without him saying fuck. He is just, him swearing just goes like peanut butter and jelly. You gotta have it. Yeah. And it's so interesting. Like when it is weird that she gets sold by the ghoul.
Yeah, that whole sequence
to
is crazy.
Harvest her organs.
Yeah.
But then she breaks out.
Yeah.
And it's that whole part was kind of weird.
That whole thing was like, because this is like the evolving of the ghoul storyline.
Yeah.
Where we get a little bit more of what's going on, where we meet the ghoul that's turning into a feral ghoul at the beginning of the episode.
Yes.
And you're like,
which was fascinating.
That was really
awesome.
interesting. Yeah. And so you're like, okay, so this is a thing. And we move on. Fingers are cut off. Reattached, given by you have a new finger from somebody else. You got a finger donor.
But see, and that's the thing, though. I didn't quite understand why, because it was the robot that attached her finger, but then was going to harvest her organs.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand why you did that. Why you did one to do the other.
Yeah.
That was the only part. I was like, okay.
That's just a personal preference kind of thing.
Yeah,
Steve.
That could be.
The robot just really, really likes reattaching limbs.
Yeah, just loves it.
He cannot work until all the limbs are intact.
And I keep wanting to call him, because in Fallout 4, the name of the robot is Cogsworth.
Yeah.
And so I want to just keep calling him Cogsworth. So I'm just going to call him that.
I did like that whole thing with the drug dealers and the ghouls and coolers, I guess would be what it is. The ghoul coming in at the end and being like, oh, look at what I found.
Yeah.
So I do actually like episode 4 quite a bit.
It was good.
And then Doofus and Dongus get the head. That's all that happens with Doofus and Dongus, is that they fight the Gulper and get the head. Congratulations, I guess. We move on to episode 5, and this is where we start getting like the beef of the backstory,
which is so great.
Yeah,
I really love this backstory.
It's literally called The Past.
Yeah.
So it's Lucy and Maximus team up because Maximus is trapped in a suit after Thaddeus discovers or is told.
So Thaddeus is your bully, and he's an asshole and treats you like shit, and you think because he thinks you're somebody else that by showing your face, he's going to be like, oh, this is going to be great.
This is great. We'll be friends now.
Fuck, dude. The only thing I liked about it was that him fucking up his foot. And that, I mean, it was a bad computer-generated foot.
We're going to get to some of the CGI late in the show because there's a few moments here where I'm like, things ran out. We ran out of something on this. And this is why you always finish the thing before you run out of money. Even if that means that the middle is the part that suffers. Because nobody likes a bad ending when the CGI runs out. The CGI bubble bath has dried out. No, so you have this whole thing where they're now traveling together and they're going to be pals. And he's still lying to her and calling himself Titus for reasons. And they find another vault. And Vault 4. Which is an interesting place.
People with noses on there. The Cyclops running it as the vault.
Chris Parnell being Chris Parnell.
Which is so weird.
There was a moment there where I was like, okay, all right, okay. Can we...
See, and
this is tonally not what we've been doing the whole time.
It isn't, but I give them credit for... It is the Fallout humor, where it looked like they were going to kill Lucy, but instead he's like, here's all these supplies, we're letting you go, and that's your punishment. And you're like, okay, that's kind of the humor of the game, so I got that.
Yeah, I'm thinking more when he has the sword and all the drama of like, I'm going to raise the sword, and then he's like sawing the bands. And I'm like, why'd you tie her up in the first place?
If you're
what is going on? It was annoying when you called her Goosey and checked her chart and was like, nope, your name is
Which we're actually
Goosey.
Moving on to episode 7. That doesn't happen till then, but...
Yeah. No, but like, it's such a... Anyway, Vault 4 is such an interesting place. It has a cult. Gotta love a cult. Meanwhile, 33, things are progressing. There's an election, I think, in this episode. Is this... when
this is when Blind Al becomes the leader
overseer. And they go into 32 and everything's fine.
But then this is also where Norm, even though the election's going on, realizes that she's from Vault 31 originally.
Yeah, and all of the overseers are from Vault 31.
And you're like, And this is where the Fallout 4 connection comes.
Yes.
But yeah, it was interesting. And I agree with you. I don't like Norm, but I liked his storyline because it was the detective storyline.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it wasn't just a fetch quest. It's like him like, okay, I need to...
And he's not a bad detective. He's not. He's not a charismatic detective in any way. There's a lot of Norm just kind of trepidatiously walking down a hallway and looking uncomfortable, and then sitting at a chair and being like, I guess I gotta do this, and tap, 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 tap. Okay, and then I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna walk down this hallway very slowly and be like, is anybody here? And like, that's all Norm's storyline is, just like, you're there for the mystery of it, not for Norm taking apart the mystery of it. You know, and it's, having watched a lot of Fantasy High recently with a very in-depth ongoing mystery, watching them take apart that mystery, you're like, oh, this is engaging because you're watching the character take it apart. Here, Norm is not engaging in any way.
No, not at all.
He's very bland, and he's about as interesting as his age, which I can't gauge.
Yeah,
so I don't know how fucking old he is. Sometimes he seems like a teen detective. Sometimes he seems like a 40-year-old man. I really don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
You have that going on. You have more of the backstory with the ghoul, and we learn a little bit more about how his wife is working for Vault Tech.
I did love the interaction he had with the posse that kidnaps him, and then he's face to face, and he fucking just kills them all easily to break out.
Yeah.
That was fucking awesome, because that was a very Western, like...
There's a lot of Western stuff with the ghoul.
Oh, yeah.
I do have to ask, what's the point of wearing spurs if you're not actually riding a horse? But it's not a big deal. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. No, I do like the pace and run of this, where it doesn't feel too... It gives you enough that you're interested. Where, like, you have that sequence where Lucy's like, so give me, like, a rundown on the last 200 years. And Maximus is like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I know when the bombs dropped and all these other things and, you know, whatnot. But, like, what, like, give me the broad spectrum, what I should know. And he's like, well, the bombs didn't drop 200 years ago. The bombs dropped when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And you find the new California Republic and all this other stuff. And you're like, there's so much more here than I even thought.
And this was my favorite Maximus episode because I did enjoy him finding these creature comforts that he didn't even know ever existed.
Yeah.
And him explaining what sex is, where it's like a pimple.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I hear it explode. She goes, well, every time.
Yeah. Well, and she's so exuberant about like, why don't we have sex? We're just stuck in this room. Let's just have sex. And he's like, what are you talking about? How sex? Why would I would do that? That sounds awful. And I do like their relationship and their dynamic. It does become very Finn and Ray, or Poe and Finn and Ray.
Oh, Finn and Ray. Oh, absolutely.
Where you just have the doofus who's an idiot who keeps on doing dumb shit because he's so in love with this girl, and the girl who just kind of benignly allows these dumb things to happen.
But the difference, I think, with this is she's acts like very in love with him. Like she actually even asks him to come back and live with her and like marry her pretty much.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I'm curious to see what their, because they went in two different directions. At the end of the...
Well, of course they did, because they had an entire sequence where they were like, okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to move in with me, and we're going to say that you're from Vault 4, and we're going to have this whole thing where I was supposed to marry another Vaulter, and you're going to just hang out at our place, and it's going to be great. And
that's like a rookie in an action movie saying, oh, it's my first day on the job, and then he dies.
And or an old man in an action movie saying, I'm going to retire tomorrow.
That's my last day.
It's just like, oh, so you're not going to be together is what you're overall telling me.
Exactly.
No way that this fantasy you've created actually happens.
And we get the end of this. We get to see Howard back in the day again, meeting Moldover.
Yeah.
Which everyone's like, oh, so she somehow didn't age where he became a ghoul.
This is something
she just didn't age.
That isn't addressed. I would say this is a spoiler, but there's no spoiler.
Yeah.
It's never addressed. And if I had a complaint, this is one of the few where I was like, but what the fuck's going on with her?
This is one of the few storylines that actually wasn't addressed. Like, they did a good job, I think, kind of ending a season's storylines, getting ready for the next season, but hers was still a mystery. Like, exactly, did she make it to the cryopods? Was she invited?
When was, if she did make it to the cryopods, was she defrosted recently? When was she defrosted? That she's running the new California Republic? Like, there's just so many questions that I end up having about, like, but, like, hang on a second. But, wait a minute. That doesn't, hang on a second.
Is this, I can't remember, was 6 or 7 the episode when Thaddeus gets the injection?
I think that's 7.
Okay, that's 7, okay.
Yes. 6 is, I really like the whole thing where he's the salesperson for Vault Tech.
Yes.
And that's kind of the end with everything. And he starts meeting the people of Vault Tech, and he's like, these people suck. And he knows there's something. And his friends in Hollywood are all like, dude, this is, like, I know you don't want to be a communist, and I'm not saying you should be, but, like, you should know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. Because it's no good. And just the back and forth and the style of it is so fascinating, where everything is the 50s except that it's not. We see it a little bit more later on when we see their cars. Yeah. But, like, there's just
like elements. His door that slides into it. That was fucking cool.
Yeah. And it just, like, a lot of stuff that's really fascinating to look at. And again, the production design is one of the reasons to come and watch this show. Yeah. The production design is outstanding in this entire show.
All the backstory stuff was so fascinating.
And like fascinating.
And they really made, like, they ended that stuff fucking so good.
And, like, so satisfactorily, where you're going down the list of, like, oh, and then there was this thing. Oh, but we know how that figured out. Oh, and then there's this thing. Oh, and that's, okay, yeah, we know what that is. Okay, and that's what this is, and that's what this is, and that's, okay. Yeah, you're actually, you know what? This checklist is pretty good set. This is pretty good. We've gone through most of the things that we needed to make sure we hit. I'm not terribly confused on almost anything. There's, like, one thing that I'm really confused. There's this woman over here. Is she a god? Like, what? Is she a ghoul but not a ghoul? What is this? What's happening?
Well, that's true, too, because when they show Maximus, or no, when they show Lucy as a child.
Oh, yeah. She's the same.
She's the same age.
Yeah.
So you're right. Did she get some kind of an injection?
Is there something going on? What's happening here? But we won't find out
till next season.
Well,
which luckily it got. They've actually already got season 3 approved, so that's how well the show is doing.
But it's going to be one of those things that we discover post-mortem.
Yeah, I think so.
And well, definitely, because she dies at the end of the season, and you're just like, I had so many more questions, and now she's dead. I don't know what to do with
I don't know
this.
what to do with it.
But I just love the feel and pace. Like, there's never a moment where the show feels boring. I agree with you here. This is where Maximus really kind of falls backwards in the plot, because this is where we really get into Vault 4 and all of the nonsense with them, and it's really about Lucy kind of going and trying to figure out what's going on, and this mystery of Vault 4. Meanwhile, you still have the mystery of Vault 33, and I just found that so interesting because Maximus just fully falls into the background, and Thaddeus is gone. And it's like, okay, so we don't have to fucking deal with the Brotherhood of Steel.
I do love the way they have it, where the creature comforts are so incredible that they can brainwash you away from what your focus is.
Yeah.
So where he's like, you know, until he sees her drag by him at the beginning of the next episode, he doesn't give a fuck where she is.
Yeah.
He has popcorn. He has a TV showing the exact same thing, but he's never seen TV before.
Yeah.
And he has, was it oysters and all, and caviar?
And he's wearing a robe. He took a shower. I do love the moment where the people are like, oh, you really need to take like a hot shower and relax. And he's like, no, we don't. We need to go. And why do you keep on saying that about a shower? What is that? I'm just like,
this kid's never seen anything.
This kid's an idiot.
Which that also, I wish they would have gone deeper into that, maybe, where it's like, okay, so the Brotherhood, did they bathe?
How do they do things?
Like, how? Like,
there seem to be so many elements that he has no concept of.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, okay, this is interesting. But like, I found everything where, because by episode 7, this is where we start finding out some answers.
Yes.
And so you find out that some of the vaults had weird experiments going on, and that's why some of the people here are weird.
Yeah.
And mutated, and some of the monsters are mutated.
Which, this is something that I didn't know was part of, I didn't know Fallout lore very well, but all the vaults were different. And there were some that were experiment vaults.
Yeah.
And that's what Vault 4 was. And it's like, or that's what Vault 4 was. And I was like, God damn it, I didn't really know this shit. Like 31 wasn't a 31, 2, and 3 being combined vaults was an experiment.
It's its own experiment.
Exactly.
And we get there in the end, which I found that scene, the Doctor Strangelove scene, was so satisfying.
It was so good.
It was so good. I just love, like, this is where we get Thaddeus turning into a ghoul.
Which is so cool when he realizes it. And he's like, oh, God damn it.
I think you're cool, Thad. Oh no!
And he couldn't go. He knows that if the Brotherhood,
he can't go back anymore. He's got to go. This again has some weird humor moments where you have Fred Armisen show up as a fiddle enthusiast playing his character from Portlandia.
Yeah, which was interesting. And you're
just like, okay, all right, this is fine.
It was just that scene where you're like, is that fucking Fred Armisen?
What's he doing here?
It is.
And because when I heard him on the radio, I didn't recognize it as Fred Armisen, but as soon as I saw his face, I was like, oh, that's fucking Fred Armisen. Why are you here? So many elements are starting to coalesce, and in a really satisfying way where it doesn't feel dragged out or too slow. You're just starting to get some pieces. So this is where we find out about Buds, and he goes to the communist meeting, and she's like, you don't know your wife. And
which that was that eye-opening.
There's always a moment where you're watching these characters and you're like, what drove you? Because in the case of the ghoul, he has that moment where he's an actor and he's standing over a guy and he's like, I don't want to kill the guy in the movie. That's not how this character would be. This character is a man of honor. He wouldn't just kill a guy who's sitting on the ground. And the director's like, no, but that's the point, is that we want you to be dirty and dark and evil and just have a little bit of that darkness even though you're a hero. And then you switch to the ghoul and you're like, man, this guy's all darkness.
Yeah.
How did he get here? Well, his wife ended the world. So that didn't help.
And then thinking about the fact that he's been walking the earth for 200 years as this creature. Yeah, he might be a little fucked up.
He might have been a little twisted by that. A little twisted.
I got a lot of vibes from his character more that we're seeing his background of the Leo character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It was very similar. It's like, you know, this guy used to be a headliner in TV shows, and now he has to sell products. And
he used to be a war veteran.
Yeah,
he fought in a war in Alaska against the Russians.
Wearing the battle armor.
Yeah, that's another element of this whole thing where all of the tech hasn't grown in 200 years.
Yeah.
So all of it is exactly the same as it was back in whatever time it was, because we're also not in any way officially told. It's also not necessarily the 60s. It might be even later than it is today.
Yeah.
It might be 21 something when the bombs drop. they're very flaky on what date it is. I know that was an issue with some people, was that they didn't think the timelines matched up right because of the reveal at the very, 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 very end of the show. There's just so many elements of the storytelling that I'm just like, no, but give me more. Like, I need to know more.
No, exactly.
I need to know what the fuck is going on. I need to know where all this is coming from. I think this is where we go into Vault 31. This is Norm
enters 31
around,
and he sees
a brain in a jar.
Which I just brought this up last week, where it was like
Futurama.
So there you go.
And it turns out, funny story, the idiot from way back that irritates Cooper Howard to no end, he put his brain in a jar to make sure that he could oversee his own personal project, which was supposed to outlast any other attacks against capitalism simply by just waiting it out. And we find out that Vault 31 is full of cryotubes, and every person came straight from the source. They all have been cryotubed, and they're going to be thawed out and given positions of power.
Not only, and I love how they made him, he's this head in a jar, but he's so incompetent. He keeps bumping into things, and he's trying to inject Norm, but he can't because he can't reach him. And it's like, that was awesome. Like, that's the humor part that I appreciated.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, he's going to get him with the syringe, and he goes off to the side.
Come back here.
Come back here.
Come back here and let me inject you.
It reminded me a lot of John Cleese in when he gets his arms and legs cut off in Holy Grail. He's like, I'm going to bite your knees off.
Bite your kneecaps.
Same damn thing.
Yeah.
And then you find out the Moldova, the whole part, that they bought her technology for cold fusion and then just scrapped it.
And, well, proprietized
it, which so they're not, and it's like you learn more of the shit.
That the dark secret is that Vault-Tec was a big enough business that they were invested deep enough in the end of the world that they had to make sure the end of the world happened. And that's the dark secret at the heart of Fallout, is that Vault-Tec this whole time has been working endlessly to try and bring about the end of the world, and then it just keeps on happening over and over and over again, because once you switch it on, you can't switch it off. And
I did remember going back now, I'm fairly certain, in Fallout 3, I guess it never registered to me, when the first town you go to in Fallout 3, there's an unexploded bomb in the middle of it, and it does say Vault-Tec on it. And you're like, oh yeah, they are the ones that actually bombed the world, because there were peace talks that were going to go ahead, and they would have lost all their money. And once again, it goes back to capitalism and money, and they're like, oh no, we got to bomb everything.
And then we get to episode 8, where we actually see the war room, and they're going over like, listen, if you invest in Vault-Tec, we'll give you vaults to do whatever the fuck you want with. We won't care. We won't look. We won't check. We won't tell anybody. You do whatever the hell you want with the innocent people that are buying their way into these vaults. And you can go to, we now know why she kept on referring to them as one of the good vaults. And I was like, oh.
And I do love, they didn't fall in that cliche where he bugs her Pip-Boy, Howard, to listen in on her conversation. Thanks to Moldova, she gave him this bug. And it looks like he's not going to do it. And then he gets in a position where he does it. And then it looks like he's not going to follow through, but then he actually follows through. And it looks like she might figure out that she's bugged because she says there's something wrong with it.
Something wrong with it.
But then you realize she doesn't, and then just gives away the whole fucking thing. And you're like, God damn.
Wow.
Dude.
And that sequence.
That was so awesome.
It's a great sequence. Made only a little worse by some pretty crippling de-aging.
Oh, you're talking about Kyle MacLachlan? Yeah. But I did love Walter Goggins' Howard, his just the look of terror and horror on his face the whole time. Kyle MacLachlan, I can't remember his character's name, the overseer,
Hank
is just like telling him how she loves him in his movies and stuff, and he's still listening to his wife and the look, and I was like, dude, that was so fucking amazing.
That sequence is going to be on a CGI People React.
Oh yeah,
because the dead eyes on Kyle MacLachlan were pretty tragic.
That was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. There was just a lot of like, oof, and this is how it turned out, huh?
Yeah.
Yiga.
And
That's
it's like,
great.
Dude, you already made Moldova not age, so it's like, why couldn't you have just maybe put a little makeup on him or something?
De-age
and just
him slightly, put him in like a wig,
because he doesn't look that. I mean, he still looks great.
He still looks good. He's still Dale Cooper. He's not bad. He's put on a little weight, but that's all. You could have easily just had him be the same person.
Yeah, exactly.
Or do what you did with Betty, where we see Betty as a younger person, but it's clearly a different actor.
Yep.
And you're just like, oh, okay. So now you have Hank walk in, and Hank is some 18-year-old schmuck who's just trying to work his way up the ladder, and is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I'll let it pass because the scene was so...
It was
so
scene.
powerful. It was such a good scene.
And so, but like surrounding all of this, you have the fight between Moldova's forces, her forces, and the Brotherhood of Steel. And the Brotherhood of Steel is here because Maximus came up with another great plan.
Yeah.
And Maximus's great plan is that he's going to give Lucy the head so she can go and run to Moldaver. Great, cool, fine. And he's going to take this other head home and give it to the Brotherhood of Steel. Okay, no problem. And then he's going to be found by the Brotherhood of Steel, because of course he is.
Yep.
And then he's going to lead the Brotherhood of Steel to where Lucy is so that he can save her from the Brotherhood of Steel.
Well, see, the only thing I didn't like about that, because I understand why he would go to Moldover, because he still doesn't know what Lucy finds out, and he thinks that she's still the bad guy.
Yes,
and he's
but
going
he
to
can't
save her.
possibly look at this as the best way to handle the situation.
Well, no, because he's an idiot.
But this is my point, is that he's such an idiot, and it has such huge ramifications.
The thing I didn't like was, so he shows up with, obviously, the wrong head to trick them. They know that he maybe not killed his knight, but...
Something
didn't
happened.
help him, and then took his identity, and then did something to his squire that was sent to him.
Mm-hmm.
And all he says is, well, I can take you to the actual head. And they're like, oh, well, he can lead the...
Yeah. Well, Dane stands up and says,
no. But even the Dane thing, it's like... Dane hasn't shown that they were anything.
No. Dane is a nothing character to us. Dane was presented as this character who is everything Maximus wants to be but never can be. And then disappears from the plot because we decide to follow Maximus. And then we come back and Dane's like, yeah, I did it to myself because I was scared to go out. And I guess we're just going to go out into war now. And that's going to be Dane's storyline, as Dane's going to be the one that crowns Maximus as the killer of Moldaver, and with no evidence to show that that's actually a thing. And that's going to be the Brotherhood of Steel storyline. They're going to ruin the new California Republic and do this whole war that doesn't need to happen and destroy Philly. Just because fucking Maximus is an idiot.
Yeah.
He's just a fucking idiot. Like, if it had happened for a rational, reasonable reason. But it doesn't. It happens because he's a fucking idiot.
And I do want to tell a little bit of my appreciation of the handling of the character Dane. We didn't really talk about Dane in the previous... just briefly. This is what I appreciate and what I wish more shows would do. Because this is a trans actor.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're doing is they don't make a deal of it because they're saying, in this future, sex isn't really anything.
No, exactly.
And to the point where he doesn't even know what sex is. He thinks it's like a zit popping.
Because of course it wouldn't be a big deal, because why would it be?
And so this is where I appreciate, okay, so this is where you're going to put in an actor. And I think they did a great job. And it's like, but you're not making a big deal of it.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was
They never
great.
even talk about it.
They never talk about it.
They never bring it up. Nobody mentions anything about it.
And I appreciate that part of the storyline. I love the fact that they make sex a commodity, really.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
And it's, other than that, it's a throwaway thing.
And they tell us that right from the start, where Lucy's like, so I haven't had this many sexual partners. I don't have any diseases. My reproductive organs are all in good nick. She just goes down this laundry list of reasons why she should be a breeder. And it's just like, this is the world they live in. This is
and
how
then
they
ask them,
life.
what's your sperm count? I need to know, because it's like, we need to just... It's something that is done to create more of our species.
Yeah,
that is it. It's not for fun. It's not anything we need to just dwell over. And I love that about it.
Well, and especially when we look at the whole experiment of 31, 2, and 3.
Oh my God!
Where that, of course, they're worried about reproduction and all these other things, and they're focused on that because we find out the dark secret of 31.
That scene where the woman gives birth to the creatures and they start eating her. I was like,
oh my God. That was so fucking...
That was so fucked up.
Jesus Christ.
I was glad that it was like a dark black and white picture. Because I'm like, I can't even stomach what I'm seeing right now.
I don't even want to think about what I'm thinking about.
That was messed up.
Yeah, no, a lot of the weird science Mojo Jojo is bad.
That was fucked up. That was so fucked up.
But like again, the stuff with Steph, because Steph is also one of these 31ers.
Yeah.
Which means Steph is somewhere in the past.
Yep.
And you're just like, this reframes everything. Every line of dialogue that Steph has had up until this point just fully reframes it.
And some of the looks she gave to Norm, that makes more sense now. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and like, why would she want Norm to start picking at this scab? What's the point of that? What does that achieve for her? And what happens to Bud's buds when 32 falls? How does that affect Bud's buds? You know, like all these different things of just like, oh, now I know what the game is. Now I'm going to start looking and seeing what the strategy is behind each of these people pulling the strings on things. I did find it very funny that Coop pulls up in this bright yellow car and is like, oh, I'm going to go teach Janie how to do roping tricks, and then sticks around. And I'm just sitting here like, if your wife ever looks out at the parking lot, like even once, like even one time during the entire day, she's going to see this bright yellow car. And
well, he goes to her office.
Coop never left. Weird. He said he was going to go.
He goes to her office, and I was kind of curious what he was going to say to her if she came back.
But that never happens. We never get there. We do get a few reveals. The Ghoul's family in some capacity is alive, and
which you got to assume they're in Vault 31.
Maybe there's another vault that has some kind of cryo.
Well, that's true too.
You know, because that goes back to to Fallout 4, where you're looking for your child and your spouse.
Well, the spouse dies.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
she gets shot at the beginning of Fallout 4, but the son, his son's kidnapped. But yeah, no, I love that. I also, I don't know if it's because they got oversexed, but what's the woman with the eye patch again? I can't think of. Steph. Was she icing her crotch?
She was at one point.
When Norm came in, I was like,
oh, it's because she just gave birth to a baby.
But I thought that was like that had been a while, like at least been a couple weeks. Days. Okay,
yeah.
Because at first I'm like, is she just having like a lot of sex with this other dude?
Because they say that Lucy's only been gone for 2 weeks.
Okay, so that made that was weird, and I wanted to ask why.
Yeah, that's what I took from it.
And then I do love when Lucy finds Moldover and finds her mother, who is a feral ghoul who is very decomposed.
Oh yeah,
and you realize that Hank is the one that bombed.
Yeah.
Which is so fucked up.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit, her dad was the one that bombed
Hank said, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And she said the highway. And he said, fine, fuck you, and bombed the entire city.
That was a reveal.
Yeah.
That was an absolute fucking banger of a reveal.
Yeah. No, I really like the pacing on everything here on out. Because, like, you can argue, like, there's a lot of shots of Ella Purnell crying. And there's a lot of shots of Kyle MacLachlan screaming, you gotta understand, don't listen to her, blah blah. Like those moments I can see somebody saying like, oh, this is going on a little too long. I thought that they were paced out really, really well.
Oh, I thought so too.
And same as the Dr. Strangelove conversation. Where it's just like the pacing on it the entire time, you're like, because you've been dying for answers for so long, you're finally getting them, and it doesn't have that sense where some things where it's too slow, and so the answer is given and you feel like you missed it because it was so slow that you're like, wait, what was the answer? And it's not so fast that it's just kind of like flung out there and you're like, wait, what? Hang on, what is going on?
And I will steal a Michael Jackson term that he used to use in his concert. They let it sizzle just the right amount, and it was just like you're saying, there's such big reveals, you can't do it too fast.
No,
you need to let it live and breathe. You need to see the reactions of the other people. Like Hank's reaction when he hears his wife was everything. That was everything in that episode. And if they would have cut that, it would have taken away from the whole thing.
Exactly. It takes that level of drama and that whole storyline, which then feeds into the entire world of the rest of the story so directly. That's like, now all of this has stakes. Having not introduced all these different corporations. So like we know some of them. We hear about Robco when we meet Cogsworth or the Cogsworth equivalent. Then there's like these 9 other companies that are also bidding in on what's going on. You're just like, oh, okay. We didn't meet any of you guys. I guess not all y'all made it 200 years. So, but like they don't hold your hand, but they do give the story a very satisfying reveal at the end. Even the moment where the ghoul's like, there's always somebody at the head of the lion, and he's gonna go off and find who's really pulling the strings. And it's like, oh,
dude, I can't wait to see him and Lucy as a road trip movie.
That's
gonna be so fucking good.
Him, Lucy, and Dogmeat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I forgot Dogmeat's still there.
I do love that the thing that pushed Coop over the edge was that he wasn't allowed to bring his dog into the vault. He was like, no dogs in the vault. Well, this is bullshit.
Yeah, who made that decision? Well, we did. What did they say? There wasn't enough resources.
It's a resource management issue. And he's like, "What? Okay, but what else are you going to do without asking anybody first?" And that's where he starts saying, hang on a minute, wait a minute. Dude. And what is the thing that pushes him over the edge is when he's sitting with his dog and he is just like, nah, I gotta know.
Yep.
I gotta know.
It's so
and
good.
I love that moment where Dogmeat lays her head on his lap. And he's like, you're not him, Dogmeat.
I know. That was so good.
It's so good.
The when you really think about it, it's been over 200 years and he still has that affection for that fucking dog. And he's like, God damn it.
Animal lovers it's a powerful love,
man. It really is. But yeah, no, I really, the ending wasn't 100% perfect, but I think they really stuck the landing. And overall, I give this first season, I mean, I would have to give it a solid A.
I would give it a solid A. I think
it was really entertaining.
I think what it really makes me want to do is what I usually do on a deep dive after I watch like a DC movie where I'm not super familiar with the character, where I go on YouTube and I look up all the lore of all the Fallout stuff, and I'm like, what did they change? What did they not change? What are people angry about? What is as I've been referring to, the Master Chief's helmet of this series? Is there one? I thought that there were two moments at the end that I liked. Well, there were two things at the end. One that I liked a lot, one that I thought was very silly. When we see Kyle MacLachlan in the Brotherhood of Steel armor, the power armor.
Yes.
I was like, this looks ridiculous. This looks so stupid, but whatever. And he flies away. And you're just like, okay, whatever. And then he shows up at this place and you're like, what the fuck is this place? And you're like, is it Seattle? Because it looks like it has the Space Needle. And the credits start rolling and you're like, okay, that was a good season. And the final reveal at the end of the credits is New Vegas. And you're like, oh yeah. Oh, okay.
And that's the thing. Like, I never played Fallout 1 and 2 or New Vegas, but things I've heard about people who are massive fans who have played those games is there are so many little things from all those games put in these, which just like that's... Whoever did the set design on this show,
the design on it is immaculate. We were talking about the design for the Transformers 1 and how bad it is. This is something where the design makes everything else better. Yeah. By being so good. Like, one of my only real complaints is that there isn't a Deathclaw. There's a lot of gulpers and no Deathclaw. We see
that
a
was the reveal. You see you see the head.
Skull. But we don't see an actual Deathclaw. And I was
so
like,
next season, we're getting fucking Deathclaws.
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming.
They gotta save something for the trailer.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think this is a solid A. It could be an A+ if I go back and find out that all the lore is authentic to the games and they didn't change that much. Then it goes right to an A+, A++ for me. Because I was so entranced by it. Yeah. And as much as I hate Maximus and the Brotherhood of Steel storyline, and how there's no causality to those actions. It's just a dumb idiot doing dumb idiot things, and it has these terrible ramifications. That's also kind of the world of Fallout.
Yeah, it really is.
And so, like, it kind of plays into everything, even as you're sitting there being like, you stupid fucking moron. Yeah. If you just didn't do anything, everybody's lives would be better. If you just did nothing, if you were still on latrine duty, everybody's lives would have been dramatically better.
He really is like the Ryan Reynolds from Fall Guy. He's the NPC who's kind of becoming part of the story.
See, I think they're all kind of players in their own way, where Lucy is one game and the Ghoul is another game. And Maximus is just like the guy like me who doesn't know jack shit about the world, doesn't understand any of the physics of it, but sees the really big, cool armor and is like, I want that. Yeah. I get that. I've been that guy.
I do say, is it Ellen Parnell?
Ella Parnell.
Ella Parnell. She has done a better job than any actor I have seen so far in bringing a video game character to life. Even the Last of Us ones. She brought a Fallout character, main character to life better than I could have ever imagined.
And like a character creator character.
Yes.
Like that's the thing about Last of Us, is that Last of Us, these are characters that are established. We know who they are. We know how they should act and how they should be. So if you get it wrong, you can immediately tell. This is really just like you went into the character creator, you made Lucy McLean, and this is what came out. And as she grows in the story, so do you.
Yeah.
And it's just like her perspective. Like, I love her catchphrase as okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
It's just so good every time she says it. And it's just like, of course, you get the badass okie dokie at the end. And all I could think of was like, this would be in the Simpsons trailer for this show.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a little hammy.
Oakley
but I don't care. But I really love this show.
That's so good.
And she is, just as important as the design elements are to getting this right, having her be as good a character at the core of everything that happens is so important, and she kills it the whole way through.
Oh, absolutely.
The whole way through.
And watching her blind optimism slowly start to turn.
But never go away.
And yeah, never goes away.
She's still at the end, she still looks at the world in a way that is uniquely her own. And even after everything she's seen and been through, even then.
Which I appreciate that, because it shows that she has been this way her entire life. So even 2 weeks of her out in the wild seeing all the shit is still not enough to completely deprogram her.
No.
Which is reality. That's realistic.
Yeah.
And, we see other movies after 2 days, it's a different person.
Yeah.
Where it's like her, it's like, no, this is still her.
That's one of the only things about her relationship with Maximus. And even that's not unrealistic, because she is put in this headspace where she sees a man and she's like, oh, this is a resource. I can use this for things. And things that I want in my life. And, because I was going to say, you could argue that falls into that, like, 1940s, like, we just have to have a love interest. And it doesn't matter if it's two people that have known each other for less than 48 hours. They have to love each other, like Romeo and Juliet. And so you could argue, like, there were moments that kind of hewed a little close to that. But, again, that kind of plays into her character, too, where also him being a lost little puppy. Like, that's another element of her character that she would be drawn to. And you get that by the portrayal. It's a really strong performance. Yeah. And I would love to see her nominated for something.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think it's worth it. I think she does a great job here.
And I hope they don't fuck it up. The positive is it Jonathan Nolan? I think it's Christopher Nolan's brother. He's the one that is the writer and directed the first 3 episodes. He's kind of the showrunner of this series, and I really hope that he continues, and it's not one of these, oh, we're changing showrunners and all this, because it's like, this first season was so perfect. I really hope they continue it and continue to stick this landing, because it's like, it very easily can turn into Halo.
Oh, without a second thought.
Yes.
It can just run right off the road.
Exactly.
I've seen that happen so many times.
And it's like they could do 3-4 seasons. Don't overdo it. This one, I think, is a series that they could overdo it. Do 2 to 3.
I would say 3 or 4. 3 or 4 seasons. I think is as much as you're going to get out of it.
Then end it. You'll get everything you need.
Yeah, call it at the right time. This doesn't need to be Game of Thrones where we're going to go 8 seasons.
And fuck it up.
I think you could, but I don't think it would be good after 5 seasons. I think
agree.
you would have diminishing returns.
I agree.
My last note that I wanted to give on this, because I can't help but take a parting shot at Disney.
Okay.
Because as much as I love them, I also want to throw apples at them every once in a while. Every episode is 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And the last episode is 60 minutes. And the last 2 episodes don't suddenly go down to 32 and 30 minutes apiece. And you're just like, what the fuck happened?
And there's some episodes that are like an hour and a half almost, hour 15 minutes.
There's a lot of content here. And that's one of the reasons it's so satisfactory, is because it takes its time and it goes through and it's paced out right. And you don't have this dumb, quick ending, which just like flash in the pan, like, we got to get it done. And you look at the last episode and you're like, man, I've been feeling X way about this series. And then you see that the last episode is 32 minutes long. And you're like, well, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah.
Because every other episode has been more than 40 minutes, but I guess fuck me, right?
Fucking Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. Hopefully, it'll never happen. But other streaming sites that make content like this see that you need to tell an hour-long story. I mean, we've seen it with 2 of our favorite things now, Strange New Worlds and this show. Both hit an hour, and they're both great.
It turns out, funny story, the past 50 years of television still holds true.
Yeah.
You either have a half-hour comedy or an hour-long comedy or drama. Having a 45-minute thing it's nothing. No. That's nothing.
Especially when you're trying to tell an intricate story.
Exactly.
You need to have the time.
You need to take the time and pace it out well.
And if instead of doing 12 episodes, you do what they did. 8-hour plus long episodes. what's that end up being? It's like 4 feature-length movies that you have here. That's perfect.
That's great. That's
it's
all
almost
we want.
It's almost like Doctor Who back in the day when that's how they would
Another
do it.
hour-long show. Every episode's an hour long. There are some episodes that are weirdly 40 minutes for some reason that have extra commercial breaks in them. Disney, I guess the thing that I'm most mad about is that not only am I disappointed, but now I have to look at Jeff Bezos and be like, look, children, Bezos can do it.
Let's forget about that.
All
right, folks, that's a good way to end episode 136 of Nerdpod Generations. Once again, episode 136, meaning 135 past episodes. So please go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or go to nerdpodgen.com, and you will find our website with links to Spotify, to YouTube, to our YouTube channel. So make sure you go like and subscribe. For some reason, thanks to Apple, I can't put a link to Apple Podcasts, but if you have an Apple product, go to Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe to our podcast there.
It's also technically there.
Yeah, it's there too.
I mean, like, me and you have various feelings about Apple. Yeah. Me more so than you, but yeah. No,
and if you go to our website, we do have different pages for our individual things that we do. Al's. If you go there, there is a link to your other website.
JutsumStudios.work under the Bronx Division tab.
There's a link right underneath this picture for that, and then mine, I have some links to some of the works that I've done. So please go back, and there's also a place to contact us and let us know about the shows. It'll email us directly. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if you have a topic.
Yeah.
Just give us
anything
feedback.
You'd be interested in, anything that we've gotten wrong, anything that we've overlooked. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm always looking for people to tell me why I'm wrong about Homecoming. I haven't found a single person yet that can tell me why I'm wrong. But maybe it's you. Maybe you can be the first.
I doubt
Who the
that.
fuck knows?
I doubt
Who
that.
the fuck knows, right? I'm not in any way hard-edged on this.
No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
No.
Well, folks, we will see you next week for episode 137. Not quite sure exactly what we're going to talk about yet, but it'll be
97
great.
with our great logo made by Kortney Howell.
So good.
With the theme song by Brendan Williams and James Connelly.
So good.
And until next time, I'm Alfred Jutsum.
And I'm Steve Taylor.
Have a good one, friends and enemies.
Peace out, folks.